cold to the touch, even with a warm heart of gold. Though most don't know about her true feelings, as she is great at keeping them hidden inside an igloo of solitude. At times she can seem tearful and perky, but for her fellow guardians like yours truly, that's the biggest sign for us that the Maiden of Frost is at her worst. The Maiden once worked in a mansion as a servant for a rather rich and pristine family, while this family would put on this kind and joyful show with smiling faces for the outside folks. Ugh. They were outright abusive to the Maiden, who would scold her for the tiniest of mistakes. If one speck of dust was found anywhere, the family would punish her in any way they saw fit. She never tried to quit or stand up for herself, because she knew how well the job paid, and the family did at least let her sleep in a spare room she never had time to take care of because she had to focus on the rest of the mansion. Not only that, but when she was young, she was basically told by teachers and supposed friends alike that her problems didn't matter. Granted, it wasn't directly said like that word for word. As an example, a teacher will always tell the class how bad bullying is and how you should tell someone when it does happen, which is true, but when the Maiden in her youth would do exactly this, she would be told by her own teachers that she was a little tattletale, as she calls it upon herself, and just about any other excuse not to take action to her harassment. Like I said, she was never told directly that her problems didn't matter, but that's what she began to think after so many years of lies and abuse. The problem is that she would have no one to talk to or any real way to vent about her problems. She just bottled them up and pretended to be happy, till the bottle would eventually burst, just like she would in the tears. When this were to happen, she would be called oversensitive and be told how weak she was by just about everyone around her. One day, while working in the mansion, the owner snapped at her for not making his bed properly. This was one of those times where the now worn-down bottle would burst again. She broke down into tears, apologizing profusely as the owner would just mock her. This wouldn't last long, though, as he looked down to see that her tears were solid. They wouldn't splash or be absorbed into the hardwood floor. They would just bounce off of the ground and land right at his feet like pebbles being dropped from above. He was confused by this, which made him even more angry. The Maiden did not seem to notice what he was screaming about until he grabbed her by her dress and demanded answers. She finally decided to shout back at her boss and push him away. The Maiden's eyes widened as she had realized what she did. But instead of kneeling down and begging for forgiveness, she stood in place with her hands covering her mouth in shock. Her hands felt cold, as she began to see her own breath like during a winter morning. Laying before her, writhing in pain, was the owner's own head, arms, and chest frozen solid. The ice was suffocating him, but he could not reach his face to rip off the ice as his arms were stuck as well. The only thing that was moving was his lower half and his legs kicking in desperation. The Maiden, in fear of being executed, tried to break the ice she formed, but there was nothing she could do. The ice was too thick, and even if she left to get help, it was already too late. There lay the lifeless body of the mansion's owner. The Maiden began to shake like someone in the outside cold. She thought about telling someone what happened, but realized that this would only guarantee her execution. She packed everything she could and ran out of the mansion. Thankfully, most didn't care about the Maiden and just assumed that she was being sensitive again, so no one questioned it when she left through the back entrance and ran as far as she could. Into the forest line she went. She ran for what felt like miles until someone grabbed a hold of her. She heard a deep voice shout at her to halt as a soldier grabbed her by the arm. He demanded to ask where she was going, but all he could get from her was scared and tired babbling. She just said, "I'm sorry, I didn't mean it, I don't know what happened." Before he could ask again, she froze the soldier's arm. The ice exploded, pushing them both to the ground. The soldier stared at his arm in disbelief, as the Maiden, now too tired to move, still apologizing with a trembling voice. The soldier looked back at the Maiden and just said, "This is what the king was looking for." The Maiden grew silent and stared back in confusion as the soldier got back on his feet and approached her. "Please, come with me. I know someone who can help you. It's going to be okay, miss." This was the first time someone actually wanted to help the Maiden, but I'll be damned if we were going to let it be the last. Let's just say, magic isn't the only thing we have in common, but it was what brought us together.